the top 3 fails in pregnancy reading, and the top 3 most surprising and also most comforting books that I personally read during my first pregnancy. For me, when I got pregnant, I remember thinking, well, what could I read as the personal and professional development version of becoming a mom? Like, what do I need to read and understand about what my body's going through around childbirth, around how to raise a newborn? So I actually have next to me here a massive bag, like kid you not, big reusable tote bag of all of the books that I read during pregnancy. I personally love reading. It's something that I've always loved to do. The fact of the matter was, though, some of the things I was most excited to read during pregnancy actually ended up letting me down the most. I'm going to detail the 3 worst reads and the 3 best reads. One of them is actually going to surprise you pretty significantly. It did for me. So first and foremost, absolute pregnancy read fail is What to Expect When You Are Expecting. This book was one that I wanted to read so badly. When we were trying to conceive with our first son, Frank, I remember having it in my Amazon cart in the belief, and I knew that we were going to get pregnant. I even bought the What to Expect Before You're Expecting, also a terrible read. However, the biggest thing that I found to be unhelpful is look at the size of this thing. It is huge. There's so much information in here, so many doom and gloom stories, so many what ifs and wonders, and they try to cover everything and anything, so much so that you don't really go deep on any specific subject. And I felt like as an encyclopedia version of what to expect literally when you're expecting, the answer is, I'll save you the time of reading it, it's everything. You can expect everything. I remember going to my doctor and asking if certain symptoms were normal. They said to me, expect pretty much anything. They were like, if it's happening to you, it seems like it's a pregnancy symptom and it's happened before. They really, I think, stray away from giving really specific, advice and that sort of thing to pregnant women. What to expect when you're expecting? Don't do it. It's not worth, in my opinion, the investment of time. It's a very thick read and you don't get the opportunity to go deep on anything that you really care about or that you really wonder about. Pregnancy fail read number 2, The Nanny Connie Way. I struggled putting this one on the fails list because I thought that there were some really interesting things that she covered in this book. Does Nanny Connie make you feel like you have no idea what you're doing? She kind of paints this big gap around, the stars and these people who she's, first of all, the nanny to the stars. So folks like Jessica Biel and Jessica Alba and those types of folks, she has literally gone in and supported their families after they have had their babies. And I was like, oh wow, if these like super wealthy, have access to anyone, people are trusting this woman with their infant children and their recovery postpartum, this must mean that she's amazing. And the actual rubric of what she covers in the book is actually fantastic. But the way makes you feel a little bit like you're inadequate. I remember one specific passage where she says it should take you 2 wipes to change any diaper. And I remember thinking, even as a first-time mom, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do that. I just use half the pack of wipes and I'm just trying to clean up this like massive mound of poop. And it makes you feel, in my opinion, very inadequate in terms of becoming a mom. And that's something that moms already struggle with. Like we already have no idea what we're doing. We already struggle with, really trying to figure it out and leaning into what our natural intuition is, but also listening to what people who have come before us say. And Nanny Connie, in my opinion, does a great job of laying out all the things you need to think about, but does it in a way that, in my opinion, was a little bit judgmental. Third and final, pregnancy book fail, The Wonder Weeks. So, of course, you read these pregnancy books, you're going through everything and you're like, what's going on with my body? What's going to happen with birth? But then I have this thing, right, that I have to really figure out for the first year. So I, of course, read ahead and I'm reading this Wonder Weeks book. They talk about these leaps. They happen at certain stages of development of the kid. And I'm reading through all of these and it seems like every 2 or 3 weeks, there's this massive developmental leap that can set them back with eating, with sleeping, with behavior, with pretty much everything. And I found myself reading this book and getting really stressed out. I was like, you mean to tell me that every 3 weeks my life is going to change drastically, which ends up happening as a new mom for sure. Your baby changes, faster than you can say Indiana Jones. But knowing about it feels a little bit more anxiety provoking. So I actually ended up not finishing the rest of this book because transparently, I was sitting there biting my nails, waiting for the 4-month sleep regression. And I knew that if I just stayed consistent and if I did what I knew was right for my baby, that it would all end up working out in the end. So for me, an over preparer, a type A personality, the Wonder Weeks was something that I felt like really added fuel to the anxiety fire for me. And that's why I put it down. So let's get into the exciting part, which is my top 3 favorite, ultimate, recommend to everybody books that I read during pregnancy. So I'm going to start with number 1, which is the book I recommend to everybody and purchase, is Expecting Better by Emily Oster. She is a data scientist by trade, and when she became pregnant with her first child, she ended up going through this extensive research about all of the decisions that you need to make as a pregnant mom, and even early into motherhood, when baby comes and you're in those first couple nights in the hospital. She does a great job of laying out a lot of the data behind some of these decisions around vaccinations, around the glucose test, around everything that you would probably need to create a decision around as you are going into birth, delivery, early motherhood, all of those things. And I felt like her approach was so non-judgmental and so clinical and data-driven that it really helped me make a lot of important decisions about my pregnancy, and it really helped de-stress. I'm a data gatherer by nature as well, so having some facts and figures to take a look at, having some studies to even cite and go take a look at on my own was really helpful to me. I felt like she did a lot of the legwork around the research and around the why behind some of these things, like the glucose test. I was like, why would I need to drink this weird sugary drink and figure out what's going on with my body? So it helped with some of those decisions, and I felt really empowered making them and having confident conversations with my providers. Second, and you can see I've read this one a lot, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. This thing has seen some time because it's really, really interesting. So I didn't know that I wanted to pursue a natural childbirth until I was probably about 28 weeks along. And the reason wasn't because of anything that I guess significantly I could point to. It was really just about like trusting my body. I was like, okay, if I actually want to have a really calm and smooth birth, if that's my intention for birth, I need to lean into the fact that my body was literally built to do this. I had purchased after I made this decision, and it's a super interesting backstory. She runs a midwifery in Tennessee, and she basically does natural births on this farm. And it's very, very controversial, I would say. A lot of people don't support at-home natural childbirths, and a lot of people do. And I was able to make a decision that was best for our family. We pursued a natural childbirth in the comfort or the safety of a hospital, right? So that we had everything at our disposal. But the book is basically broken into 2 parts. The first part is all about what to expect from your body in childbirth, what your body does, how the baby proceeds through, what's basically happening. I loved that because when I was literally in childbirth, I remember thinking, okay, this is what my body's doing. Here's what the baby's doing. And it kind of helped me, I think, process through the pain a little bit more significantly. Then the second half is all birth stories. And so it's kind of like those trashy romance novels, right? Like they're full of excitement, they're pretty dramatic, and they're just kind of easy to consume and read. And so I felt like I kind of gave my brain a break from literally downloading all of the information that was possibly available, right, during pregnancy, to actually help me just digest and think, okay, if this woman can do it, and even through these trials and tribulations, we've got this. So Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, cannot recommend it enough. Third and final, absolute amazing pregnancy read that I recommend to everybody. I found it at a flea market, but it's Bambi, the novel Bambi. And I'll tell you what, I started out to read this because I wanted exactly what I cited before. I wanted a break from all of the information. This was before I found Ina May's book. And I just wanted a break from everything. It was beautiful. Summer was flowing. I gave birth to Frank in August, and so I read this book in the beginning of the summer in June. It really prepared me for the seasonal nature of motherhood, probably more than any of these reads had. It's very based in the cyclical kind of balance of nature, and it talks obviously about Bambi and his experiences from becoming a small child into becoming a man or dear man of his own. And there are seasons of excitement and seasons of kind of just being and being slow. And I think it influenced probably more of my approach on motherhood and even life post motherhood and the way I run my business, more than any other read that we'd had. And honestly, I purchased this book for anybody who is expecting now because I think, A, it's such a beautiful read. You can get through it really quick. It's easy to consume. And it really does, I think, just give a little bit more of a peaceful experience to, welcoming your first little one. I think a lot of us worry that we're going to make the wrong decision or do something that is going to impact the way our family, interacts or the way that our birth goes. And we spend all this time preparing, but really leaning into the natural seasonality of life, recognizing that post-birth, we really should be taking a pause. We really should be looking around and considering, what is the next step for me? What does my life need to look like? And I'm so excited that any of these books could be on your reading list. And I think they would knock it out of the park for you. Hope this was helpful. I will link all of these below so that you can snag your copies. And I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Take care.